much do you need to do what you want, when you want, with who you want for as long as you want? Really, what does total life wellness look like for you? What does having a good day look and feel like? And then ultimately, how many of those can we string together? Because that's really what we're talking about here, is having a good day and having more of them. And if we're making the right choices the majority of the time, I genuinely believe the majority of our life gets better. So how do we do that?
It's funny because we call this podcast The High Performance Life, and everybody knows that life is love, impact, faith, and energy. But what that really stands for inside of the whole life is that when you identify what matters most to you, I just got the chills because I'm just thinking about the fact that it's just the everyday stuff that matters the most. We take each day at a time. You just dropped your son off at college. Greg, I just, my youngest son just joined an academy for Major League Soccer. He's 14. I dropped him off to a host family. Luckily, we know them and they're amazing people. But it's been the hardest week or week and a half that my wife and I have dealt with in our marriage, probably since we started. So you want to talk real life? It's exactly what you're talking about. There's a change that happens, and every day is full of those imperfections. And so I'm grateful to talk about those things because I think the audience wants to hear real life. They want to hear real conversations and real challenges that we're going through.
Look, you mentioned imperfection. I've written a lot about being perfectly imperfect, and that's the heart of it. You talk about what matters most. Rule number one in the operating system that I have is knowing what's important is what's most important. We got to start there. How do you build out an operating system? How do you build out, a midlife action plan or anything until you identify what's really most important to you and get to define for yourself really like what a high performance lifestyle looks like to you. It's not one thing there. I think all of this, especially in middle age, it is take all of the experience that we've had, that we've lived and we've learned, the good, the bad, the ugly, the successes, the failures, the imperfections, the time when we felt like things were perfectly perfect, and the times that they have been galactically, imperfect overall. And it's all there to pull from, to then determine kind of what works for you and what doesn't, and what success or wealth or high performance or any kind of label you want to put on it. But really, what does total life wellness look like for you? What does having a good day look and feel like? And then ultimately, how many of those can we fucking string together? Because that's really what we're talking about here, is having a good day and having more of them. And if we're making the right choices the majority of the time, I genuinely believe the majority of our life gets better. So how do we do that? It's the small little choices all day, the little habits, the little behaviors, all of those things that stack up so that even the big ones don't seem so overwhelming anymore. And so there's just a lot there to unpack, which you do every week really, really well. And you're living in it yourself, which is what makes it, again, I think, very relatable, very credible. And hopefully at the same time, I think for all of us, a little aspirational to get guys going, hey, if these guys can do it, or are doing it really, and trying to, I can too.
When you prioritize the things that matter most and you start actually identifying that, you have to have the perspective from where you've come from. And that's the beauty of being in the middle of life. The beauty of the middle of life is being able to look at your challenges, your failures, and actually seeing them all at one time, but how they led you to where you're supposed to be. Right where you are right now is where you're supposed to be. And what you choose to do with it from here on out, like you just mentioned, is really identifying, okay, what's most important? What's a great day look like? I heard someone go through this process one day, and it was Dean Jackson in my Genius Network group. And he said, you know what? I want to wear shorts. I don't want to worry about what I'm wearing every day. I want to, he defined I want to talk to these types of people. And he started defining his day in a way that was really intricate, but very simple. And if each day was like that, it makes it really exciting. And that's what you just mentioned.
Look, simple is hard. I say it all the time, which is why most guys don't do it. More is easy. Complicating things is easy. Breaking it down and making it simple and quantifiable and measurable and repeatable. That's really hard because that takes preparation, that takes consistency, that takes discipline, that takes accountability. And then all of those things are simple to say, but very, very difficult to practice and be able to do it over and over again. And it gets back to what you were touching on, writing it down. Overall, hey, I break it down into my 6 F's, which we talk about in the book: family, fitness, finance, food, fashion, and fun. And you have to have a thesis in a way you want to operate in every one of those areas. And it's about how we turn those F's into A's. And more importantly, not necessarily being a straight A student, but saying, hey, what do we want our cumulative GPA to look like in life? If family is the number one and most important thing to me, what does that really look like? How much time am I spending with my family? What are we doing? Where are we going? Again, what's important? If it's finance, look, how much do you need to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want? We can define wealth a whole number of different ways, that are out there. If it's fitness, which is really health, what do you want? My goals on paper, hey, I want to hang around 175 pounds. I want to be somewhere around 10% body fat. I want to, look pretty good naked. I want to have fun, train in a lot of different modalities, and I do not want to be injured. So, okay, so what does that look like on a schedule? When you really put it on the calendar, how many days do you train? What type of training do you do? What do you put on your body? What do you put in your body? You can make it really, really simple. Sounds like a lot, but when you really break it down categorically, it is very basic. It is very simple. Listen, fashion's a big, and style is pretty important to me. It's not about being on the cover of GQ magazine or anything like that, but it is saying, look, we all have a personal brand. What do we feel comfortable in? What makes us feel good about ourselves? How do we want to be perceived? If that's jeans and a t-shirt, great. Let it be the best. I guess I can curse here.
You're fine. Yeah, you'd speak.
Going to be
speak
the
freely.
best fucking t-shirt and best pair of jeans that makes you feel like the proudest, and best version of yourself. If you do your best work in Roan workout clothes, then schedule your hardest freaking meetings right after your workout when you're still sweating in that, and in your all black Roan tank top and shorts. Do it. This is about figuring out what works best for you and then getting after it, whether you got to wear a uniform to work, or something, or whether you can really stretch your creativity and individuality. How do we build out a total life portfolio that goes, okay, this feels really good? Because whether you are the CEO of your company or whether you are just the CEO of your own life, you get to control that.
Yeah, it's crucial. I've always told my kids when they were really young and they were going to their soccer games or whatever we were doing, I would say over and over again, look good, feel good, play good. And it was just constantly in them. And they come out, their hair wasn't done. I was like, go get your hair done, man. We go out into the world and we look our best. It's a part of who we are. You want to feel your best. You want to look your best. And for middle-aged men, it's not just men, women as well, but more men, there's so many people start to give up. And you mentioned fashion. It's kind of interesting because it's something that we have to alter and change with. Our body changes. I have no hair. I wear a beanie.
Yeah.
I wear a beanie, man, and a hat.
We can do this together too, in the revel in our baldness.
Yeah. The minute it's like 60 degrees, I'm freezing. So, at the end of the day, style has to match. And the truth is, you can style and you can create that personal brand as you get older, but you should be altering just like your life is altering. Giving up is a really, really difficult thing to come back from. And so I love that you mentioned fashion as one of the things that's really important. It's very valuable.
Well, I think it's about confidence. And I think it's about pride, and I think it's about security. Fashion just happened to be the F. You can call it style. You can call anything you want in there. But what comes from that is I think you also attract and repel exactly what you deserve. But that's in all of these areas, how you carry yourself, what you say, what you don't say. Again, what you put on your body, what you put in your body, what you prioritize. Those things become obvious when you act and operate that way on a consistent basis. And that will attract or repel certain types of people. You talked about playing good, and I was, now we're in Colorado at CU, and Coach Prime says that we finish with and pay good, look good, play good, pay, and all of these things again are connected. And that's when this abundance kind of mindset, this growth mindset kind of takes over. This is when you can start to really work through the imperfections, the way you can embrace them, the way you can make them even work for you, the way you can go through them, and the way, again, you start stringing together these days that feel good for you, and those start stacking up. And it's the actions you take that are way more important than even the outcome you're seeking. The outcome becomes inevitable when you're taking the right actions day in and day out.
Yeah, you
People
talk
tend to fixate on the outcome, and they forget that there is no overnight success. There are no 7-minute abs. There are no shortcuts and no excuses to get there. You actually have to put the work in, which gets back to how simple can we make the plan so that you can execute on the plan to get the outcome that you want.
Yeah, if we want to make complicated simple, what you just said is so important, because if you're going to be an abundant thinker, if you're going to be open to true abundance, and you just go out into the world with negative energy, not worrying about who you're going, it's no big deal, I'm not going anywhere. Just the simple act of opening your brain to opportunity wherever you go, conversation wherever you go, instead of sitting in the elevator and looking at our phones and ignoring everybody, a simple smile and a hello. You never know what ends up happening. I've had some of the greatest conversations, opportunities, connections, business opportunities from simple things, from just being open to receiving that stuff. And that's taking the complicated to simple.
Well, let's break it down. Look, I've got it into 5, called 5 rules or the framework in there. If you really want to break it down, it's number 1, knowing what's important is what's most important. Spend as much time as you need to spend there, because you've got to figure that out. Number 2, if you don't know where you're going, you are never going to get there. You do have to have that destination, that outcome in mind. Then number 3, aggregate, curate, and eliminate. You can aggregate from all of the noise and everything that is out there, but where it really gets interesting and important is you've got to curate it down to what works for you, and then you've got to be relentless about eliminating all the shit that doesn't. And 4, show me your calendar, I'll show you your priorities. If you can't quantifiably and measurably show me, if your family is the most important to you and your fitness, your fun, show me. Open up the calendar and show me where it is. Everything goes on that calendar because it's quantifiable, it's measurable, you can follow it. And then it's grace, gratitude, and latitude, because we are way too hard on ourselves. We don't embrace those imperfections or those failures. We try to cover them or hide them, or we let them beat us up or down. This is all trial and error. This is all testing and retesting. This is all, figuring out what your cadence, what your rhythm, what your race pace is. You can run a 6-minute mile, you can run a 9-minute mile. Now, if you're a 9-minute mile runner and you want to run at a 6-minute mile pace, you're not going to hold that for very long. You can get better over time. The goal is to finish. Doesn't really matter when you get there. It does matter that you're continuously taking action and moving forward. And you are testing and you are retesting and you are pivoting when you need to and you are course correcting, but you are moving forward, and it is not a linear straight line to the top.
That's good.
All of those bumps and all of those peaks and valleys, and not getting too high on the highs and not getting too lows on the lows, and even taking some of those cliches and kicking them out and just get back to doing.
Yeah, it's my favorite saying. Nike doesn't say just try it. They say just do it. And that's why it's stuck so long. It's such an amazing tagline, and action and movement can move us so forward. Sometimes you just got to get up and walk towards the goal, even if it's a small step, right? And I think it's important for our listeners to have an understanding of your journey, because your journey's been pretty interesting. And part of what drew you to this midlife male, and I'm sitting here holding your book here, concept, was you lost your father at 47 years old. Your father was 47 and you were a teenager, I guess, at that point in time. And this shaped your path, and I'll let you speak to it, but you kind of woke up at 47 and had this overwhelming feeling that drew you into something special. And I think that part of the story is important. The businesses that you've bought and sold and built and all the great success is amazing. And if you don't know who Greg is, you should look him up because he's done some really cool stuff. But this shows you who you are as a human.
I appreciate it. It's hard to hear, and you're catching me at a vulnerable and emotional time right now. We touched on some of that, dropping off your son at school, leaving a piece of my heart in Boulder. I've been out in Colorado. My wife and my other son are home right now, working on some really exciting things. But it's hard to be out of your house. It's hard to be out of your routine, the grounding and all of that. And these are all things I've struggled with for a while. I grew up very privileged, very entitled, very enabled. My dad was exceptional. I had two younger brothers and my mother. We grew up in a wealthy North Shore of Long Island, New York town. And really, there was nowhere to go but down. I come knowing there was nowhere to go but down, kind of from there. And when my father unfortunately got sick, and I was in my teens and ultimately passed away right as I was leaving for college. 17, 18, I was headed out to University of Michigan, and he did not get to take me to school. He could not. He couldn't get out of bed. At that point, he was incapacitated, couldn't get out of bed. And it was one of the original tipping point life questions for me. I actually didn't want to go. I wanted to stay home, and be with him. And it was super important to him that I went, that he didn't hold me back or that I didn't miss this opportunity. And I still don't know what the right answer, I don't know. To this day, I still don't know. I was fortunate enough to be able to make it back in time from Ann Arbor to his bedside in the hospital, to be there in time to hold his hand as he passed away. So I'm grateful for that. But it doesn't look, it changes you. It absolutely changes you. And that mentor, that advisor, that father, not only father figure, but actual father. I also wasn't ready to take on the role of going from older brother to even father figure out there. And I had a lot of years where I just went off the rails, man, just in complete denial. And had a very live fast, die young, leave a good looking corpse kind of attitude. And you get to a point where you go, okay, I can keep doing this. And even though for a while from the outside looking in, it looked like things were good and successful and so on, you can cover all that shit up. The reality was I didn't feel good. I wasn't really playing good, to your point.
Yeah.
Wasn't really doing. And 47 always seemed like that was where the line was. If I could make it to 47, if I could just make it to 47, that was let's see what could happen now. And I did. I somehow got to 47, married, 2 kids, ended up in a business that I never thought that I would be in, professional services, insurance business, partner in a large firm. And I remember at 47 just having this fucking breakdown in my car. Like, I'm just in my car in the parking lot of our office building, reserved parking spot that all the partners have. I'm dressed in a suit that I don't feel comfortable wearing. I have this multi-million-dollar book of business, an office on the 24th floor overlooking all of downtown Houston. And I am like, have it all. Beautiful wife, beautiful kids, and I am fucking miserable. Like, absolutely unfulfilled, miserable, thinking this is the best it's going to be. And I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. I have benefits. Okay. We have some money in the bank. I have quote unquote good clients. I have partners. And there was nothing wrong with the business. Nothing wrong with the people, nothing wrong with the business, nothing wrong with the industry. It was 100% me. And I was like, okay, I can take 47 and use this as my launching pad to an entirely new life. I can pour rocket fuel on how I want to actually live, act, behave, what success really looks like, change this metric from salary and title and doing all of the normal things and all the things we're supposed to do it however I want to do it, because I'm in bonus time right now. My dad never got one day further than this. So this is bonus time. What do you want to do, Greg? Do you want to remain paralyzed and stuck in the, like literally 1 foot out the door, like I could not get myself to go inside? I remember I just turned the car back on and I left that day. I didn't go inside that day. I left that day. I got out of the suit. It was like a Jerry Maguire moment. I think it was even before Jerry Maguire came out. I don't even know. But I like went home, I changed clothes, and I started to rethink everything. What kind of clients do I have? What kind of life do I want to have? What kind of shape do I want to be in? What kind of places do I want to visit? What does our house even look like? What do my friends look like? What am I doing that I can't stand doing? Whose number pops up on caller ID and I dread having to answer that call? Who's responsible for our income in a way? Other than all of these questions, way more questions than answers, but that was the tipping point. I know it's a long answer to it, but it was like, okay, from 17 to 47, if you will, we got 30 years, like 30 years of like, okay, can you take all this shit and can you really actually do something with it? And now I'm 50, I'll be 51 in December. And is it perfect? Far from it. But if you would have told me at 47 on that day that in a 3-year period, if you will, I could get in the best shape of my life, we would sell our firm, and ultimately now I have the ability to do what I want to do the way I want to do it. Not like fuck you money, okay?
Right.
Like work with us way more. It's not about that, but just a different degree of freedom, that I could show up better as a father in there, that I could have more fun, that I could have 200 conversations with high-performing men like you do, that I have learned so much from, that those conversations could turn into a newsletter that I sit in my backyard and I just write. That started as a tree falling in the woods and now has thousands of men subscribing to it each week. That you could combine those two things, the podcast and the newsletters, and somebody would actually want to make a book out of that. Like, I never thought about writing a book. I don't even know how to write. I just talk and I just record it, quite frankly. And then it transcribes it, and then we keep what's halfway decent and we throw away all the rest. But that a friend would come to me who owns a publishing company and go, you've got something here. And getting that kind of support and that kind of help, again, back to attracting and repelling what you deserve. I like to eat great foods. I like to, I cut alcohol drinking for the most part, but, drink protein shakes and supplements and everything. And I like to exercise. And all those people and those companies could become my clients because that's really how we live. And I didn't just have to chase insurance premium or salary and title or whatever the other things. You could actually, like, whatever you want is really possible and probable if you're just willing to go out and go after it. There are high-performing people everywhere that do all kinds of different things. Some of them golf, and some of them drink, some of them are in cigar bars, some of them are in gyms, some of them are climbing mountains. They're fucking everywhere. Find what works for you. Go after it. You will be accepted like beyond belief. Like if you're really being you, and you will start. I'm the guy who never believed this. You got to push the boulder uphill all by yourself. That it's lonely at the top. Entrepreneurship is lonely. Success is lonely. Raising a family even feels lonely. All these things. I was the guy who never asked for help, push it uphill all by yourself, dangerously close to getting crushed multiple times with it rolling back over me. Had it backwards, had it absolutely backwards. And when you do flip the switch on that, you do start seeing aging not as something to fear. You start seeing it as something aspirational. You start living your message. It's unbelievable what happens.
It's freedom. I mean, what you're describing is a freedom that most people don't get to see in their life. And if they can identify what they're not willing to lose or give up and build backwards from there, it's we talked in the very beginning. I could tell you right now, driving away and dropping off my son and him still being a baby. And all I could think about in my brain was all the things I haven't taught him yet, all the things that I was supposed to do, all the time that I've wasted on things that don't matter, because the only thing that matters in those moments is that moment, that scenario, that thought process. It's a great reflection. It allows you to kind of grow from there. It allows you to say, okay, well, what am I not going to do from now on? What am I going to prioritize better from here? It's an imperfect journey. And, you know, they wouldn't be where they're at. They wouldn't be able to take those steps without us having been how we are either. But it's an imperfect journey.
It is. And that's why I'm also so grateful for opportunities like this, because you're saying this about your son. What have I taught him, or what have I not taught him? And, you know, we all wrestle with that. And we just drove 17 hours from Houston to Boulder, and I had a list of things I wanted to talk to my son with. That list could go on for, could go on forever. I don't even know if my son knows the story I just told about being in the parking lot. This is not the shit you want to bring home and dump all over your families.
Yeah.
But here's an opportunity to be like, hey, you could actually listen to this. I never knew what my dad was really thinking or doing or going through. I've come to find out a lot or learn a lot of things after the fact or later on, through exploration. This is where that grace, gratitude, and latitude, piece comes in. But I also want to touch on, one other thing that, as I describe kind of even some of the stuff that I've gone through, and I know there's similarities in what you've gone through too. Like, this is not about, quitting your job and following your passion and throwing caution to the wind, because a lot of that shit can be just galactically irresponsible, especially in middle age. It's really about, wherever you are, you have to think it through. And we need that support. What maybe staying in your job is the most responsible thing you could do. Maybe you have not combined personal passion and professional expertise, and it may not be the end all be all, but guess what? You do have a wife, you do have 2 kids, you do have school tuition, you do have cars, and you know what? Just upping and quitting because you want to go be a woodworker may not be the smartest thing to do at 40-something years old. Because if you think you're unhappy and unfulfilled now, let me tell you something, you're going to be a lot more unhappy and unfulfilled when the benefits go away, when the paycheck goes away, when you're struggling. Like, whatever your situation is, we really have to think about how we design the life, the best version of the life that you are able and capable and cut out for to live. And you got to get real on that too. And sometimes that means staying put for whatever that period of time is. Sometimes that means I can change and alter in these other areas, or I might be over-indexed over here at work, or, by the way, I may be in great shape, but I don't have 2 nickels to rub together. Like it's all about finding what that harmony and what that life portfolio looks like. And we got to be real about this. We tend to kind of look around and see, oh, look at what that guy did, or look at what that guy is doing, or they have more, or they look like they've got it all figured out, or the only thing that success is if I have to up and quit right now and go start this other thing. It doesn't have to look like any of those things.
But we got to stop trying to blame people too, right? I mean, what you're talking about is, I think there's just one quick thing inside of this is, you've talked about, sometimes you wake up and you're looking for excuses why you're not feeling happy. And a lot of times this happens with our careers. People in general will wake up, and instead of being in love with what they do every day, they're maybe blaming what they do every day as the scapegoat, because they're not healthy and they're not giving the time into their relationships, and they're not. I mean, as a leader of a company, there's many times that someone is literally talking to us and they're telling us all the things that are wrong with the career or the job, or the things that we're not providing for them. And that there are things that they need to work on outside. You can't say that, but you're listening to them, and you're like, you just ask the questions. Well, tell me about what are you doing with your spare time? Well, I don't have any spare time. I can't. How do I lose weight? How do I get healthy? And it's really about stop blaming all of the things that you're not doing, and start focusing on what you can do, and go back to that movement, go back to that plan.
You got to transcend, there's so much emphasis on the why. listen, I get why you want more money. I get why you want to be a better father. I get why you want to be in better shape. I get why you want to blame other people. I get why you make assumptions and judgments and everything else. You know where we should be focused? We should be focused on how. How am I going to actually be happier? How am I going to be healthier? How am I going to be a better father? How am I going to make the kind of money I want? How am I going to lift other people up around me? You know, how am I going to do those things? What are the actual, again, action steps that I need to take in there? And you've got to take that hard. Again, it is easier to point and to blame and to assume and to make judgments and to put it elsewhere. And you develop a lot of resentment that way. You develop a lot of bitterness that way. That's where the anxiety and that's where the stress fills up. And then in middle age, you end up in this position of conformity and complacency and redundancy. And this is the best I'm ever going to look and the best I'm ever going to feel and the best I'm ever going to do. And it's not that fucking great. And then you come home from your hard day at work and you guess what? Your other job at home feels even harder. And we give and we give and we get. And this is a vicious cycle. But the reality and the harsh truth of it is on us. It is on us as men, it is on us and as individuals to, again, as you were saying, take back what matters most. How do we want to go about doing that? And if we cannot do it alone, and I would offer that most of us can't, I certainly can't, couldn't, still don't, I invest heavily in the same types of products I offer and sell. Probably tenfold out there. Then that first step is certainly the hardest, but can you go seek help? Look, I have every training certificate under the sun because I'm a fitness junkie in there too. You know what? I have a trainer. Why? For consistency, for accountability, to have somebody that's ahead of the game that can teach me. Because left to my own devices, I won't do it. Not the way I want to do it to deliver the outcome that I actually want. No financial acumen whatsoever for the vast majority of my life. Go hire somebody who's wealthier than I am, who knows what to do, and who I trust and that can help me and teach me and bring me along. Want to unpack 30 years of trauma? Get a really good therapist and start going. And it ain't easy, in there. You want to advance in your life in other areas? Maybe a coach is the right thing for you. Want to figure out how to get your diet or anything in here? Before you start following a bunch of influencers who don't know a fucking thing about what they're talking about and are selling you a bunch of shit you don't need, hire a nutritionist or an actual dietitian. Get your blood work done. Figure out what your body responds well to, what it doesn't. These are all basic, simple blocking and tackling things that are available to everybody. But most of the time, a lot of time, we want to skip steps. We either want to take no step because it's never the right time. It's never the right moment. It's not perfect, anything. Or it's too expensive. I view it as an expense rather than an investment. And an expense is something I spend money on and I get nothing in return. Whereas an investment is something I put money into and I expect a return, a sizable one in there. Or I'm not going to do it because if I do this for me, what do I have to do for my wife? Oh, if I hire this guy or I go on this thing or whatever, how much is that purse I have to get her? Or what does she have to do? I know we can't do both in there. All of these things are considerations that first step is the hardest. But again, aggregate from everything that's out there, curate down to what works for you, eliminate what doesn't, and start moving forward. Because going nowhere, is going nowhere.
We started this pre-conversation. We were talking about I got a guy. And one of my favorite sayings and books to recommend to people is, we talked about the how, but when we don't know how, that's when you go get a guy or a gal to help you. It's who, not how. Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy wrote a great book called Who, Not How. And when there's a challenge and you know what you want, sometimes it's just as simple as finding someone to be accountable to, someone to mentor, someone to be mentored by, someone, it's amazing. And I know I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. I've definitely seen what you put out there, and surrounding ourselves with the right people is a really big topic. And we're talking about, we are the energy we put out into the world. But if we're not surrounded by the right circle, the hows become pretty damn difficult because we don't have the right who's. So we've got to really elevate and start to look for people that can help solve multiple problems. And if we want to be in better shape, like you said, it's a good thing I had a personal trainer for, 15 years. He's recently not been able to train, got sick and had some health issues. So I started doing it on my own. I'm still showing up. I'm still doing it on my own. I could not have done that 20 years ago, though. And so knowing that about yourself and your own trajectory and what you can and can't do is mandatory. And do I know I could show up better? Do I know I could be in better health? Do I know if I had an accountability partner, I'd probably be doing even more? Yes, I know all those things.
Now, look, maybe the answer to most of this stuff is maybe. Some people really like training by themselves in there. It's also not always just about throwing money at the problem either. That's not the simple solution, to those things. It could be, look, there are some great apps out there. I use Ladder and I train with Ladder a bunch of times. I think it's fantastic. I'm in a place in my life when I can where I can do that and understand it and go through it, and that fills a gap. I have some friends that come over, to the garage to train with now. I do have a training partner. It's not always just about throwing money, at the problem. It is defining again kind of what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses, what really are my goals, and then I have to put systems in place that help me achieve my goals, because goals without systems are just empty. Now we go, and as far as the network as you're talking about and the who's that are there, that also takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. Easy to, again, look out and go, oh, this guy knows all these people, and look at who he's hanging with. And of course, he has this network and these people and these groups. That takes a long time also. It takes a long time to develop. You have to be willing to reach out. You have to be willing to put yourself in positions that are uncomfortable. You have to try to get into the room. Sometimes you got to buy a seat at the table. Sometimes you can just be in the room. And then once you're in the room, what are you going to do when you're in the room? How do you add value also so that you can all be able to receive value? What kind of rooms do you want to be in? You can talk about now 200 and something episodes of the podcast and so on, but what that also equates to? That equates to probably 800 no's. How many guys have said no to coming on? How many conversations and guys I want to listen to and learn from and hear from that don't even respond, quite frankly? And then, but you got to stay in the game. There are also guys that are coming on in episodes 200 and so on that I've been asking since episode 1.
Right.
That's 200 plus weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because what do high performers also want to know? They're looking for other high performers. Hey, are you going to be here? Are you staying in the game? Are you consistent? Is your work getting better? Are you leveling up? And I'm just like, oh yeah, let me give you all of my valuable time on day 1 when you've been at this a week. No, prove it. That's how you earn it. That's how it's not given. That's how it's also, I think, more respected, more valuable, and more mutually beneficial.
Yeah,
Like
I think
that stuff is really interesting to me, that I think often gets overlooked. And I'll just make one last point, not to cut you off.
No, it's good.
Everything, again, you want is available out there. You may not be able to get Scott one-on-one for an hour of his time, but you know what? You get an hour of you every week if they listen to your podcast. I see a Cowboys helmet in the back, over there. You may not be able to spend time with Troy Aikman, but you know what you can do? You can follow Troy, listen to what he puts out there, listen to what he says, and get a lot of value about a guy who's in his 50s, living his best life,
Absolutely.
in better shape than he was in his plenty. Everything you want is out there right now. You get to choose very carefully who you follow, what you consume, and then make sure that out of what you're consuming, you're always producing more than you're consuming. Take great consumption and turn it into great production.
Yeah, you mentioned the word investment, and you compared investment versus cost is something that I believe wholeheartedly in. And I believe that investment is something that's a multifaceted thing. Investment is not just the time and energy we're putting in, it's the mindset we bring. It's the mindset of thinking bigger, the investment in something versus the cost. I mean, college kids today, you'll hear people say, you know, the cost of this education or this certificate or this is too much. And it's really about the investment, the mindset, the logic that we bring to that. And what you're talking about is also the investment of work that goes into it. It's the time. And we launched this podcast in the last year. And let me tell you what, every guest I've had on has helped me get better. Every guest that I've had on, I've learned something from. Every guest that I've had on, whether I knew something about them before or not, is an opportunity to grow. And when you look at every conversation, every relationship like that, it's really empowering. Some people will say, you mentioned the Cowboys helmet behind me. You know, I met Emmitt Smith this year. I had a friend who I have helped in some other ways in business. And he called me, he said, hey, Emmitt's the keynote speaker. I saved you a seat in the first row in the first seat. And then I sat down and I right in front of Emmitt. I grew up a Cowboys fan my whole life. My dad's a Cowboys fan. So this is valuable. I get to listen. This is the glory. I was 16, probably 14 to 17 when they won their Super Bowls. Like my son, my 17-year-old, so angry at me because he's like, I'm getting let down right now, Dad, because these guys aren't winning jack shit while I'm a teenager. But the point is, I'm sitting in the front row, someone to my right, who I've also treated with great respect, who we've had differences in a business relationship recently, comes up to me and says, hey, I know you're a Cowboys fan. He's actually doing a meet and greet and a little thing afterwards. I'm going to text you the room. Just show up afterwards. I walk in, I get a picture. I get him to record a message for my whole family. We have a theme that's Danners in Dallas, and it's from when we all went out to a Cowboys game as an entire family. One of the best things we ever did when the kids were young, nieces and nephews were young. I'm sharing this story because it's really important to connect the dots. It wasn't just the investment in showing up that day. It was the investment in the human that saved me the seat. It was the investment in the relationship from the person to my right that remembered me. It was the investment in loving something so much that I followed it for so many years. And as I walked out of the room after I met Emmitt, got a picture with Emmitt, somebody walks in with a box full of balls. And it's two ladies who have no idea how valuable or like cool this is. They don't care. They're like, we don't even like football. She's like, do you want one of these footballs? The only thing is you can't sell it. And she throws me as I'm walking out of the room an Emmitt Smith autographed football. So I come home, tell my dad, my brother, and I share that because it's not linear. It's like business success. It's all over the place. You're investing constantly and there is cost involved, but the cost is moot. If the value in the end, what you've given it, if you've given it everything you got, it's going to be 10 times the value in the end. I promise.
It is. It's a great story. I believe that people want to do things for other people. It makes them feel good. They want to do things for the right people and because it feels right for them. And then but the reason this has happened, I think the reason that it's happening for you in that scenario happened was because this is, again, your character. This is how you operate. These are things that are earned. They're things that are not given. And there's a respect that's there over an entire body of work or period of time because it makes the other person feel good about going, hey, this is something that's interesting to Scott. This is something I know that Scott hasn't asked me for a thing, or there's been mutual value there. So the act of giving becomes that much more like even to the giver than necessarily the receiver. We were actually just talking about this yesterday. I had a couple of guys out here that we are kind of working on some midlife male strategy stuff for next year and so on. And these are top guys and a couple of top guys. And you also know what happens. Everybody comes out of the woodwork asking you for everything. Friends, family, everything. I mean, so constantly, the ask. And what we were talking about was, we're going to do it for the people that don't, and not only that don't ask, like, we're going to do it for the people we genuinely care about. We're going to do it for the people who've genuinely earned it. We're going to do it for the people within our inner circle. And so, because we really, really want to. But when you're constantly being just like hit up, there's no real fair or mutual exchange of value or so on. And I don't think people set out to just be takers or anything, but it just kind of happens that way a lot, in there. And it's hard on both sides. I know it's hard to be the asker. I know it's hard to be the taker. It's also, it's hard to say no, all of those things. But I just circle it back to, we attract and we repel what we deserve. And the manner in which we carry ourselves each and every day. And if you're out there living your message, whatever that is, just being you, the best version of you that can look like, more good things are going to come your way. Fewer imperfections, fewer failures, more opportunities, greater successes, fewer expenses, more investments, all of these things, as you said, I love it. I do. I think it's all connected. And it's absolutely all connected. There is no separation between like personal and professional. There is no separation between like work-life balance. It's all integrated. It is all connected. It is all how you take it and you manage it and you navigate it through all ages and stages of your life. I'm just a slow learner and a late bloomer. And you touched on energy. At 50, heading into 51, it's all about energy. Because once you start picking some of these things up as a slow learner and a late bloomer and everything, guess what? Now I need the energy to actually do it. Like, shit, I've gotten some of the answers to the test, not all of them, but now I actually want to do it and live it. Well, that comes back to having the energy, which comes back to, again, how are you taking care of yourself? I know some really, really old 30-somethings. I know some really, really young 60-somethings. Like, this shit matters. Do you want to extend your runway or do you want to shorten it? By the time you finally start figuring some shit out, do you actually want to be able to do it? Even on the business side, it's like even a lot of great ideas and a lot of great companies end up failing, like right at the point when they figure it out, because that's when they've run out of money. They run out of runway. Like, all of this shit takes a lot of time. You got to manage the game. You got to really figure out what pace you want to run and be able to sustain it.
Yeah. And you touched on something when you and your buddies were sitting around kind of planning out the next year. And that is, I always talk about something. Giving is selfish. It's the most selfish thing that you can do in a positive way, because you will never have felt better, especially when it goes to people that are grateful and need it, or even giving without expectation is the most valuable thing that you can do, because it's this uplifting energy that you receive, and it's impossible to fight. And if you go through life living life in transaction mode, which is what you described, people that just ask, it's the same person that comes up to you at a networking event and you talk about energy. I could tell your energy in 3 seconds. You walk up, you shake my hand like a robot, you look me in the eyes and you say, "Hi, I'm Scott Danner. What do you do for a living?" I know that you don't give a damn about who I am in any capacity. You care about what I can do for you. That's what you should ask me. You should start off by just asking me, "Hey, what can you do for me? How can you help me?" Instead, when you go into that room and you want something and you want to invest dramatically and you want to have all the things that you've just talked about, you go into that room and you look for the energy that's radiating and you say, "Man, how can I give that guy something? What can I do for her? How can I help this person?" And you listen, feed it in, and then develop out what could come. And the transactions are a byproduct. Great things happen. That's exactly what you described. And it's so super true.
What you're trying to do, look, really is hopefully you're trying to transcend the transaction, because it is really so obvious. We all know that. We all know that guy that when he comes walking towards us, you know exactly what's coming next. Okay. That guy, he's got something to sell you. Like that guy, like, he wants to manage your money, or he wants to sell you a life insurance policy or whatever. We all have those guys that we know come and they just kind of get the Heisman. They're just kind of known, out there.
Can I pick your brain for just a second? Can I just pick your brain? You're like,
exactly on that stuff. And again, like not hating on those guys. It's just, you know what? They may not know any better, the way that they have been taught or the way that they have come up with and their baggage that they carry and they've accumulated over years. You know what? Hey, are you open maybe to listening and learning and seeing maybe a different way of doing anything. I'm not even saying right or wrong, but you know what? There are always options and choices. Take a look around. Look at that other guy who's gliding through the room kind of effortlessly. And people are gravitating towards that guy and he's closing big deals. How is that happening? What are the differentiators, there? That's the stuff to start paying attention to, that energy, that you talked about. You mentioned selfishness. I think there's a perception that self-care is selfish. I think self-care is one of the most selfless things you can possibly do. That is how you show up better for everyone else in your life. That is how you learn the most of what works and what doesn't work, and that you can pay it forward to other people. That is how you really start to add value and transcend the transaction, and even get into those areas of combining professional
Personal.
expertise with personal passion, where what do we have interests in? You know what? Hey, you might be a cyclist, or I might be a cyclist, or we might train, or you're a guy who maybe just wants to even drop a few pounds. And you know what? I might be an insurance salesman, if you will. But you know what? If I call you at 8 o'clock in the morning and invite you to come and train with me, and we do it every day for 6 months, let me tell you something. When that other broker knocks on your door and says he's going to save you $5 in 15 minutes, like a fucking Geico commercial or whatever, he's not getting in. He's not getting in. And by the way, nobody are moving multi-million dollar accounts for slick salesmanship, either, or anything like that.
You're only attracting, you are attracting the energy you put out in the world. If you put out skeezy, sleazy, salesy bullshit, you're going to get sleazy, skeezy, salesy bullshit people coming right back into your life, and they're going to cause problems and chaos in your business and your life over and over again. If we go out and we seek people we are investing in, and I've owned a financial advisory practice for over 20 years and built a business in a space where, it had to change. We went from the old days where it was a brokerage world and people were selling things, to a world where you had to be the planner, the life coach, the development of someone's entire future, and helping them serve as the psychiatrist and the marriage counselor and the friend and the trainer. And you know what? That's the best part, because if you're doing what you just described, you've invested in the relationship.
Well, you talked about the first thing that comes up with guys a lot is what do you do? When you meet, what do you do? We are typically and guys identify, and we've been pre-programmed to default to what we do. Hey, I'm Greg, and I'm a partner at this firm, or hey, I'm Greg, rather than who we are. You really want to differentiate yourself. Again, you really want to stand out. Learn to talk about who you are. Be interesting. Attract other interesting people in there. Talk about who you are. Again, how you are as a husband, how you are as a father. What are your hobbies? What do you genuinely like to do? What do you even do for fun? Just add one extra word to what do you do? What do you do for fun? What do you do for health? What do you do for a vacation? What do you do at night? What do you do in the morning? You'll learn so much more about the person. And guess what? You'll realize, wait a minute, oh, actually, want to have breakfast with that guy. Or I want to be around, his family, or we have this in common or that in common. And you know what? His widget, his vocation, if you will, he happens to do this. Oh, and by the way, he happens to be best in class at that. But that's one facet of him.
Right.
Tremendous wealth manager. There's a lot of tremendous wealth managers out there. There's another insurance guy in every block, in the world. There are some that are transactional. There are some that are true professionals. There are some that are barely able to make a living at it. And there are some that make millions at it. In every one of these things, what are the differentiators? And again, who are you attracting? How interesting are you? What are you adding value? How are you exchanging that? Sometimes it's just adding those one or two extra words past the what do you do? And you now start getting into the who you are. And then when you can back that up with, okay, he's really good at what he does. Who are you going to choose? You're going to choose two guys that are really good at what they do. One you really like and one you don't. Or one you have something in common with and one you don't. One you want to go to dinner with or one you don't. Now, look, if you're on trial and you need a great trial lawyer, let me tell you something. I don't care if I can play golf with the guy, like him or not. I want him to
Yeah.
get, like, there are all kinds of differences in there. But for the most part, like, we get to choose. Be around people that are very good at what they do, but that are also very, very good at living their lives that align with how you want to live your life.
Greg, tell me about where are you putting your energy now? So you've got some cool stuff going on. I noticed that your podcast recently you had a little bit of a shift where you and a good buddy are having great conversations and you're just talking about life. You're talking about stuff that's important to the midlife male, and
Mm-hmm.
you're having really I listened to your buddy talk about climbing a mountain with I think it was Sterling Hawkins
Yeah.
up in who I've also had on the show. Amazing guy, loves to live uncomfortably. And so these are all cool things. What are some of the things you're most excited about that you're doing that our listeners can follow, that you're putting your energy into, so that you can people can find you and figure out what else you have out there that you're helping people on and that you love doing right now?
Yeah, thank you so much. Look, the low hanging fruit really is the newsletter and the podcast that is out there for free every single week. Go to midlifemail.com, subscribe to both of those. They'll get dropped in your inbox. I think we're putting out really, really valuable work each week, that is not telling anybody what to do, but providing options, choices, shared experiences, recommendations of things to help you make better decisions, in midlife, as a man. Really, one of my goals for the year was to go deeper, was to get more vulnerable, to get more unguarded, which is what I'm doing with my buddy, Naren right now, because I think that's been a big piece over the last couple of years of what I've learned and what I want to give back and deliver. So the low hanging fruit is in the newsletters and the podcast. Certainly getting a copy of the book, which is something you could open at any page at any time. Thank you for that. I wanted to create something that you could pick up at any. I'm not a reader even from cover to cover. But start anywhere, pick it up, bounce around in any of these, and get a really great story that can help, again, add value to your life. And I've been really, really blessed that that's become a bestseller on Amazon. So thank everybody out there for that. The bigger picture stuff, Scott, is that Midlife Mail is really becoming a media company. It's becoming a dynamic, multi-dimensional media company that is involving coaching. I work with guys one-on-one right now, and we're developing an annual cohort that will include everything from coaching to some group calls to a couple of trips throughout the year, and really designing something that gives guys the support and camaraderie of other like-minded, high-performing guys, together. Working on an online course, as well, because guys want to learn differently and are at different stages of their lives, and expanding on the content and the breadth of content along the 6F categories. So we can become that destination for guys that are looking at maximizing midlife as a resource, as a trusted companion, as a source of again, advice, recommendations that's credible, relatable, and also slightly aspirational, that's out there. So that's really the bigger picture stuff. And it's all a result right now. And I say result, but we're only really at inception and just scratching the surface on it. But it really is the culmination, is maybe a better word, of what's transpired over the last couple of years, and what I'm hearing from guys like you, and what I'm learning and listening to and trying to respond to, and then put together the best team I can of experts in all of these areas that can help share their value. So whatever you're looking for, whatever allocation of your total life portfolio you feel like works for Scott, or you feel like works for Greg, you can pull from this and build it out. Because again, at the heart of this, there's no one way to be successful. What we're trying to really do here is share the stories and experiences and provide you with tools and options and considerations and resources to help you get exactly what you want out of middle age, because like the future looks really good. It can look really, really good. And we have this opportunity right now to live longer and better and healthier and wealthier and stronger, well beyond middle age. And it is, in summation, that flip the switch on kind of what midlife really looks like. that it's not a crisis, it's an opportunity in there. And how do we apply it moving forward? So that's really what's happening. And I'm just super stoked about it. We get chances to do this and talk to you, and have had some cool opportunities to speak on some pretty big stages. And I want to do more of that. And personally put more challenges on the calendar, each quarter, to get out there and try some different things and do some different things and then share them with everybody. I like this. I didn't like that. We went here. We tried that. If you're looking, you want to get your ass kicked by Navy SEALs, go over here if that's what you need. You want your hand held and you want to sit in a circle, go over here. Like, it's all out there. And that's what just excites me, to kind of scratch the curiosity itch and then bring it back and say, hey, here's what we think. Decide for yourself.
Greg's definitely living a high performance life. You are investing and practicing what you preach in the very things that are best for the demographic that you serve. And I'm grateful for having you on the show today. So Greg, thanks for joining me. Thanks for being a part of this. And I look forward to watching all the things you're accomplishing in the future.
Thanks so much, Scott. I love what you're doing, and anything I can do to help support you and your audience, I'm happy to do it. So thanks so much for having me here.
Awesome, man. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.